10. Cranky koala. A woman who saw a cute koala walking on the side of the road in Queensland, Australia, got a rude awakening when she suddenly approached the wild animal and didn't get the welcoming response she expected. In a viral TikTok, she crouched down and talked to the marsupial before reaching out for cuddles. The koala became alarmed and charged at her, causing her to lose her balance and fall backward to the ground as she tried to get away. A full-fledged attack soon followed, while the person filming the video just laughed. Koalas are undeniably cute and look very cuddly, but just like any other wild creature, they're prone to aggression when threatened. Based on her lack of caution, some commenters believed that the woman was an American, or at least not from Australia, since most locals are well aware of the dangers associated with approaching koalas. 9. A violent escape. In 2007, a large male silverback gorilla named Boquito escaped from his cage at a zoo in Rotterdam. He then went on a rampage and violently attacked a 57-year-old woman from behind, dragging her on the ground and biting her over 100 different times. She was quickly rushed to the hospital with a broken arm and wrist, along with some other serious injuries. Speaking with the Dutch Telegraph newspaper, she said that Boquito put all his weight on top of her. In the moment, she truly thought she was going to die. Ironically, Boquito was the woman's favorite animal in the whole zoo. She was such a big fan of the guy that she visited almost daily. Employees noticed her smiling and making direct eye contact with the gorilla, and told her to avoid eye contact, letting her know that some primates perceive it as a threat or challenge when smiled at. But the woman insisted she and Boquito had a special bond and deeply understood each other. Even after the attack, she said he was still her favorite animal. 3 others were hurt during the rampage as zoo visitors scrambled to get away from the angry gorilla, who ran at full speed down guest pathways. Employees eventually managed to lock him in a restaurant and shot him with a tranquilizer dart before dragging him back to the enclosure. This wasn't the first time Boquito escaped either. Back in 2004, he broke out of his cage at a zoo in Berlin. Thankfully, in this case, he was quickly captured and returned to his exhibit, and nobody was harmed. 8. Maniacal monkeys. A monkey trainer in China's Jiangxi province got an unexpected taste of his own medicine one day in 2011 when an animal in his care turned on in the middle of a street performance. The man was known for being cruel toward monkeys, mainly by whipping them if they disobeyed his commands. When one of them got fed up with the abuse, he lunged at his trainer and grabbed at his hair. Photos of the incident show the man grimacing as if in excruciating pain. The trainer tried to grab his whip to discipline the monkey, who snatched a stick off the ground to keep fighting his instructor. They squared off with their weapons in a stick-to-stick match as a crowd of witnesses laughed. Hopefully, it made the man rethink his training methods. In another instance of primates lashing out at a human, a tourist pushed a monkey off the fence he was sitting on in Fujian province back in 2018. The monkey was heard crying in footage captured of the act, but he quickly got back up and went straight for the man's face. He then chased the tourist into a temple nearby. Another monkey then joined in on the attack, and the pair made another go at the man's face before visitors drove the primates away. He was left with some nasty scratches, but not very many people felt all too bad for him. 7. Big game hunter pays big price. 46-year-old Jose Monsalves and a friend traveled from Argentina to Namibia in 2017 to hunt some big game living on a private wildlife reserve. The pair were out with 3 others when an elephant charged at them and trampled Monsalves. By the time a group member was able to shoot, he was dead. Just months before, a 51-year-old South African hunter named Theonis Botha had a fatal run-in with an elephant in Zimbabwe. his group met a herd of the creatures, some of whom were pregnant, and 3 of them charged at the hunters. Botha shot one of them, and a 4th elephant also ran toward the group. She lifted Botha up with her trunk and slammed him on the ground when one of the hunters shot at her, causing her to fall on top of him and crush him. Botha's death came as sad news to the trophy hunting community, where he was well known for leading rich clients on hunts. Even some who weren't a big fan of his lifestyle conceded that any human death is nothing to laugh about. But some animal lovers and activists felt no sympathy for Botha, chalking the incident up to a well-deserved example of karma. 6. Fatal feline encounter. In early 2018, a human head was found on a private reserve in South Africa with a rifle laying nearby. At first, authorities thought it belonged to a park employee, but the worker was found alive. They were still struggling to identify the person, how they died, and where the rest of the body was when the gruesome discovery made headlines. Police thought that he was most likely a poacher, and that a wild animal had killed and eaten the majority of him. In recent years, the region with Kruger National Park has become well known for rhinoceros poaching, but the severed head was found in an area where lions are more common. The man was later identified as 50-year-old David Baloyi, who had crossed into South Africa with 2 other hunters from Mozambique to hunt. They tracked a pride of lions when Baloyi's friends heard him screaming for help. The hunters panicked and left their partner and guns behind to go back to Mozambique. They told Baloyi's family he had been devoured by the big cats, and his sister confirmed his identity. Identifying the brutally slain man was only one piece of the puzzle. Investigators opened an inquiry into the tragedy in hopes of learning more about what happened leading up to Baloyi's gruesome death. But all signs pointed toward the men foolishly deciding to hunt for lions at night. One of them paid for it with their life. 5. Barreled by a buffalo. Claude Kleinhans was a celebrity in the trophy hunting world with over 30 years of experience hunting big game in Africa. He met an ironic end in 2018, though, when his hunting party killed a buffalo in the Limpopo province of South Africa. The 54-year-old and his group members were loading the creature onto a truck when another buffalo from the same herd suddenly charged at them, puncturing his groin with its horn and piercing his femoral artery. He died almost instantly. In some ways, the attack wasn't all too surprising. Buffalo are known for being territorial, especially when it comes to protecting their herd. They're also massive, weighing up to 1,300 pounds or 590 kilograms. But it was shocking that a hunter as experienced as Kleinhans would have let down his guard in a situation like this. Throughout his career, he led big game hunts for high-paying clients through his company, KOALA Safaris. Customers could choose from dozens of animals to kill. Some of the creatures had a fee listed next to them, including zebras, which came with a $1,500 trophy fee, and giraffes, which came at a larger cost of $2,850. Other species had no specified fee, including buffalo, which were part of an exclusive special package. One thing's for sure, Kleinhans died doing what he loved, even if it was a questionable activity. 4. An ironic plunge while hunting in Oregon's remote Maury Mountains. 69-year-old Gary Heater shot a large elk in 2016. He began towing it up a steep hill with his ATV when the vehicle flipped out of nowhere, making him fall backwards and land on top of the animal's antlers. Heater was impaled and badly injured. Members of his hunting team gave first aid and called for help. But because of how far away from civilization they were, they knew Gary would need to be flown to the hospital. They did their best to get his bleeding under control in the meantime. The group was still waiting for the chopper when a deputy got there. He observed that Heater was conscious and responsive, but was going into shock. When the helicopter arrived, the pilot had trouble finding a clearing big enough to land. He eventually found a place, but the group had to carry their friend half a mile, 0.8 kilometers away to reach the aircraft. Luckily, they got Heater loaded onto the chopper before fuel levels became an issue. None of Heater's organs were damaged beyond repair, although he injured some of his back muscles. If he had landed even slightly in other directions, things could have turned out much worse. 3. Confronted by a crocodile. 44-year-old Scott Van Zyl mysteriously vanished in 2017 during a safari hunt in Zimbabwe. None of the other hunters realized anything was amiss until his hunting dogs returned to camp later that day without him. It was surprising because Zyl was an experienced outdoorsman. But it was clear to his friends that something went terribly wrong when they found his rifle inside his truck. With him nowhere in sight, a large-scale search ensued. Group members passed out flyers to the public, helicopters flew over the reserve, and others looked for Van Zyl from the ground. Their first clue to his whereabouts came when they saw his footprints leading up to the bank of the Limpopo River and his backpack nearby. It was then that police started to suspect Van Zyl had been eaten by crocodiles. It was a reasonable theory, considering how 3 people had already been killed by reptiles that month alone. The month before, the remains of an 8-year-old boy were found inside a crocodile after he went missing. During their search, officers shot 2 crocodiles and found what appeared to be human remains inside their stomachs. DNA tests confirmed that they were, in fact, responsible for the missing hunter's death. 2. Eaten alive. In 2018, a group of poachers broke into a South African private game reserve to hunt rhinos. They encountered an angry pride of lions, and by the time investigators found them, only a skull and a piece of someone's pelvis remained. So little of the hunters was left that law enforcement couldn't even say with certainty how many people had been killed. They found 3 pairs of boots and 3 pairs of gloves, indicating that the big cats feasted on about 3 men. The first sign that something was wrong came during the early morning, when an anti-poaching dog alerted his handler to something unusual. Lions could be heard nearby, but the handler didn't investigate since it was a normal time of day to hear lion activity. Near the remains, officers found hunting gear as well as wire clippers, which are usually a telltale sign of someone being a poacher. Law enforcement then launched a ground and air search for any possible survivors, but failed to find any. The park's owner, Nick Fox, told press that the poachers' deaths were undoubtedly tragic, but that the incident should serve as a warning sign that going on illegal hunts is risky and can be life-threatening. It's unclear whether detectives ever identified who the men were, or even if they concluded how many were eaten. 1. A primate's payback. When villagers in southwestern India's Karnataka state complained about a bonnet macaque bothering children in search of food, local wildlife authorities hatched a plan to trap him. Their first step was to drive 3 cars toward the monkey to send him off in a specific direction with the help of civilians. Instead of fleeing from one of the cars, the monkey instead charged at the driver and bit him in the hand. The man ran off, but it was far from the last time they would cross paths. From then on, the macaque followed and attacked the villager every time he came into view. When he took refuge in his vehicle, the creature charged right at it and ripped off the cloth covering. His rickshaw was rendered undrivable, leaving him unable to do his job properly, and he sustained painful injuries. He was also worried about the safety of his young children, often leaving him afraid to go home in case an unwelcome visitor followed. Wildlife officials finally caught the monkey and relocated him over 13 miles, 22 kilometers away to another forest. The man thought the torment was finally over, but he was mistaken. Less than a week later, his arch-nemesis reappeared, having traveled all the way back to the village just to go after him. When the man learned the monkey was back, he went into literal hiding and begged authorities for help. Wildlife officials quickly recaptured the creature and once again relocated it to another forest. This time, the macaque stayed away for good. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be the target of a neighborhood cat's misguided rage, or have a neighbor who feeds wild skunks? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.